So hi everyone, welcome back to my guide on how to execute a good Ironman. Today we're doing part 5 of the swim. So today we're covering off putting it all together and also the end part of the swim and getting ready for transition. So putting it all together. Okay, so where do you start? Executing a good swim, which is what this part of executing a good Ironman is all about, is it's the work that you do in training. It's the work that you do in race week and when you turn up to race. So let's just cover off some of those fundamentals that we've talked about. So first up, in your training, you need to make sure that you're getting enough volume to be able to get through the swim and get to the shore fresh. It's not a 1 hour 30, 2 hour swim. It's a part of a, 8 to 17 hour day. So always be mindful of that. As I've said, you want to be super comfortable training or swimming at your Ironman pace. Yes, having the ability to change gears, as we've discussed, is great. However, ultimately it just comes back to that and just getting it done. And as you get fitter, that Ironman pace will get faster. Or alternatively, when you bolt a wetsuit on and it fixes all your poor posture, and you'll fly. But the reality is, from a perceived effort, you're still going at that same effort, just with training, you go a bit faster. It's so fundamental. Okay, so there's some of the things, it's and also with your training, make sure it's specific to how you're going to race. I've probably covered it, but once you get to that last phase of training, I'd shorten down the warm-ups and practice going into a solid swim without a big warm-up. If you're doing a 600-700 to a kilometer, 600-700 meters to a kilometer warm-up as part of your session, it's too much in the build-up for an Ironman. You need to be adaptive for starting out reasonably cold and building into it. Can't stress that enough. And we'll cover that on the swim sessions. In the supplemental, I'll do some swim sessions for Ironman. So, you've got to make sure you've done the training. You've got to turn up to the race with a plan based on your training. And, the plan might be simple. Just start out easy, build into it, and have a good day. Simple. It might be that your plan is that you're a front of the pack swimmer, so you might want to go out a bit controlled, a little bit more of an effort, and then sort of settle down. Or if it's 2 lap swim, you might want to build into it, and then the second lap you want to push a bit. You know what I mean? Whatever your strategy for the course is, then train for it, and so that you actually know what you're doing when you turn up, and also all those little things about knowing where you're going, recce the course, checking for current, and and not stressing about conditions and the stuff that you can't control. There's too many people worrying about stuff that is way beyond their control. How cold's the water going to be? You don't know unless you're from that area. So you can't change that. So it's what you're trying to do to have a good day is to remove all the stress and the bullshit that you actually don't need. All it does is create anxiety. It makes you flustered, and it's not what you need, especially in the build up to what is a big day. On that, just as based on evidence of one of my coached athletes recently. Most of the Ironmans, they'll have a Facebook training page for that particular race. My advice is, if you're a newbie, avoid it like the plague. There's just going to be a bunch of random people asking random questions, sometimes stupid, sometimes they're going to be all stressing and winding everybody up, and everybody's going to be stressing. People will be posting about how much training they're doing, and a whole bunch of other people will be stressing that they're not doing enough. It's bollocks, excuse the term. Most of it's bollocks. You have to work to your plan and live your life, in the sense that you can't control what somebody else is doing. You've just got to do what you can do. Find somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about and ask them if you've got questions. Don't get me wrong, there is no silly questions when you're a first timer or you're new. You know what I mean? I just don't know as a social media forum's the best place. Again, just find it. If you contact me, I'm happy to answer any questions, regardless of who you are. regardless of whether you're coached or not. Do you know what I mean? Just find me a message, private message, and say, hey, I have a question. What are your thoughts on this? And I'll give you answers to my best of my ability. But don't ask Karen off the internet. Unless maybe it's Karen Smyers, who is a triathlon legend. That's a Karen you can ask. Look her up. If you don't know who she is, look into the history of the sport. There's some fantastic people in the history of our sport. Regardless of the big four, or you've got the Puntos sisters. Zeren Baker, who lives here in Christchurch, absolute legend. Julie Moss, who put this. There's Paula Newby-Fraser can't. There's just and that's most of the women. Without even talking to this week's the week of the woman. Yesterday was Day of Woman, and ask them, or there's plenty of dudes out there as well. So just find somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about and ask them if you've got questions, even if they're silly questions, but just those forums, they're just going to wind you up. Anyway, so back on topic. So the one other thing that you might want to practice and you build up is open water swimming and contact. And we will do a supplemental on open water swimming. The critical things, there's a couple things. If you're a newbie, it's very, very good because it helps you practice long swims in your wetsuit. It helps practice dealing with waves. It helps dealing with current, and it helps with navigating. The other thing that you can practice also is contact, because in all honesty, there's going to be contact. Nobody wants contact, you know what I mean? I joke. I talked about, I'm in Australia about these guys, and I'm going to swim over top of you. That's never my intent. I'm just trying to sort out so I can actually have a good swim without having to do that. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you get contact at the turns. Just try and play nice. The reality is if you're coming up to a turn can and it's the right turn and there's somebody on your right hip, give them some room. Don't just chop them going into the turn can. Do you know what I mean? That's just being a dick, for want of a better term. Give them some space. It's going to cost you nothing to go a body width wider around the turn can to give the person on the inside a bit of room. Because the reality is maybe on the next leg or on the way home, they might roll through and you might actually be able to sit on their feet. Or alternatively, if you give them a bit of a chop going into the turn can, they might just grab your hip and just pull you through, pull over the top of you and just push you out of the way. So it's probably what I'd do if you did it to me, at the risk of, we're all trying to get around the course. Play nice. If you act like a dick and then somebody retaliates, anyway, let's not talk about that. It's just, try and avoid it as much as possible, but it's inevitable. But if you're a newbie, practice it in training in the open water, or you can practice it in the pool. I've done sessions here with Tri Club where we swim out and I'll purposely bump into people, I'll purposely grab them by the hip, I'll purposely, swim diagonally, I'll purposely just go offline just to see if people follow me. We're heading out to a can and I'll suddenly start drifting off to the right purposely just to see who follows, because that's the thing in the race. When you're following somebody, you better make sure they're going the right way, because it's all well and good getting a nice toe, but if you swum an extra 200 meters because you've gone off on a tangent and then had to come back, it all comes back to that. You've got to pay attention in all aspects of it and in all aspects of your training. Get some practice. You can do it in the pool. Do mass start. Do flags to flags in the pool. And that'll give you a bit of contact, a little bit of fun. If it's anything like the people that I train with when we do that, they're quite competitive. There's pushing people into the lane ropes, there's grabbing of togs, there's grabbing of ankles. It's on for young and old, but it's in a good-hearted, fun nature, so that when you come across it in a race, it removes all anxiety. So anyway, digressing. So, practice that. If you're a good swimmer, you probably need to do less of open water swimming. You might want to do a little bit in the last phase, but in all honesty, you probably get a lot more quality training in the pool. I personally do most of my training in the pool, and then closer to the time I'll do a couple of sessions in my wetsuit just to get used to swimming in the wetsuit, get used to the restriction a little bit. But most of my quality sessions are in the pool. Because that's the thing with some of those open water sessions. They're a skills-based session, not necessarily a quality-based session. Doesn't mean say it's a bad thing, because some people need those skills, but not everybody does. So it's a case of you've got to trade off what you want, what you need, and think of self. You know what I mean? It's just going along to an open water swim for the sake of doing it is probably with sometimes it's like, well, do you really need it? And always in your training plan, question, is this the stuff that I need to be doing? Same with listening to this and this podcast, the piece of advice. You know, is this good advice, or do I just need to ignore it and just do what the hell I like? You know, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is your hobby for most of you. It's not your job. So all points of crisis and indecision, ask yourself, am I being paid for this shit? If the answer is no, then calm the hell down and have a bit of fun. Right, so, you know, you've turned up, you know all the bits and pieces that you need to do, you've recceed the course, you know how to start the swim, and then it's a case of settling in. So let's talk briefly about getting out of the water at the end. Couple of things. The simplest way is just come into shore and get up and on you go. You know, and if you reach the shore fresh, that's job done. If you're the sort of athlete who sprints the last 200 meters of the swim because you think you're going to get a good time, or you're trying to get away from somebody beside you, or, you know, you're a tool. Pure and simple, you're a tool. All you're doing is spiking your heart rate unnecessarily in what is a long day. And that stuff, all those little heart rate spikes, you know, they mount up and they eventually catch up with you later in the day. You know, that's why when we talk about cycling, we'll talk about variability index, and it's about keeping, you know, everything nice in a nice controlled window where you're not spiking all over the place. You know, you don't want to be doing it in the swim either, or the run, to be honest. So there's only 2 instances where it's acceptable to sprint the last 100 meters of or 200 meters of the swim, you know. First up, if you're a pro athlete and there's a swim preem on the line, so it's worth money to you. You know, our pros make bugger all money as it is. So, you know, if you're a pro and there's potential to earn money and you had to sprint for it, go for it. The only other time it's really acceptable if you're a back of the pack swimmer and you're really tight on the cutoff. You need to sprint. The cold, harsh reality is it's a lot of money to spend to only do a swim. And they'll be shouting at you from the shore to hurry you up, you know what I mean? And if you know you're one of those back of the pack swimmers, you know, the reality is that you need to haul. You need to burn some matches, regardless of the cost. You know, it's one of the few times where I'd say you had to just go for it. But you know, hopefully you will have done the training so that you can actually get through the swim and be fine. So maybe the smartest way to get out the water is as you're coming to shore. And this is also the same if you're doing a 2-lap swim. As you're coming in, the last couple 100 meters, you want to start just increasing your kick a little bit, you know. So just a sort of a double kick for like that, you know, and start promoting blood flow to your legs, because you're going to go from horizontal to vertical. But the other thing you might want to do is, so rather than do that and suddenly spike and increase in your heart rate, what you want to do is you want to depower your arm. So rather than just plowing along, just glide a little bit more and just depower that catch phase a little bit. Increase the kick a little bit, so that what happens is that you start promoting blood to the legs. It starts warming them up and getting the muscles firing, so that when you go from the horizontal to the vertical, it's less of a shock. So try it, practice it in if you're doing some open water swim training as you're coming into shore, you know. But the critical thing is depowering the arms. You don't want to just power on and then start with your feet, you know, just ease into it. And then, poof, job done. You're at the shore. You're off into transition. And, you know, kind of, there's some of the fundamentals. You know, you'd have to go through and filter it all out so you can put it all together. But, you know, it's a case of always remember it's a small part of a big day. So we're at the shore. We're off to transition. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to break that into 2 parts. So that will be the next episode. First episode we'll talk about things to think about training, and then again we'll put it into part 2. We'll be putting it all together. So that's enough from me. Peace out. I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers. Bye bye.